everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to take a look at something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to be taking a cursory look at life itself.
interesting.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking. Cursory, isn't that you know, counter to what we normally do here?
Right. Usually we like to dive deep.
Exactly. But don't worry, we're going to be diving deep into this idea of cursory, too.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So just to be clear, we're using cursory in the Merriam-Webster sense, rapidly and often superficially performed or produce.
So basically, like skimming the surface of something.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, we're not just going to skim the surface here.
Got it. So we're using this definition of cursory as a jumping-off point to explore how it applies to our lives.
Right. And all of this was actually inspired by your reflections on the word cursory.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It was the Merriam-Webster word of the day, and it really got me thinking.
Yeah, and you know me, I'm always looking for deeper meaning in these everyday things.
Oh,
And this one really got me thinking, like, are we rushing through things that really deserve more time?
that's a good question.
Yeah, and can something still be meaningful even if it's done quickly?
Right, like is there a trade-off between speed and depth?
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that your reflection started with something very personal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you talked about your regret of not getting to know your grandmother better.
Yeah, that's right. It's something that's been on my mind a lot lately.
And I think that feeling of, I wish I had spent more time, it's
Well,
something that a lot of people can relate to.
it's a pretty universal experience, I think.
Definitely. And it really makes you realize how precious time is.
It does, and yet we live in a world that's obsessed with speed and efficiency.
Right. It's all about doing more, being more, achieving more.
Exactly. And it's no wonder that so many of us feel this sense of time scarcity.
Oh, yeah, that feeling of never having enough time.
We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us to do more, be more, have more.
It's
It really is, and it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle and forget about what truly matters.
You even mentioned how thinking about death can be so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It is, and it's interesting because it's something that's inevitable for all of us.
Right. We all know it's going to happen, but we don't like to think about it.
So why do you think that is? Is it because we're so busy with the day-to-day that we just push those bigger questions aside?
I think that's a big part of it. We distract ourselves with work, with consumption, with busyness to avoid confronting our own mortality.
It's like we're trying to outrun time.
In a way, I think we are, and your reflections really brought to mind the work of Ernest Becker.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
He argued that our fear of death drives a lot of our behavior. We create these cultural systems and beliefs to try and make meaning out of our existence.
So it's like we're trying to leave a legacy behind to prove that our lives mattered.
Exactly. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with that, I think it's important to be aware of how this fear of death might be influencing our choices.
So what are we supposed to do? Just sit around contemplating our demise all day?
No, not at all. But I think your reflection challenges us to consider what areas of our lives we might be approaching too cursorily.
That's a good point.
Like what truly matters to you? Is it your family, your creative passions, your community?
Right. Those are the things that really give our lives meaning.
Exactly. And if we're not careful, we can spend our lives chasing things that won't matter in the end.
So for everyone listening out there, take a moment to reflect on what deserves a less cursory approach in your own life.
Yeah. Is there a relationship you've been meaning to nurture, a dream project you keep putting off?
Don't let time slip away.
That's right, because time is the one resource we can't get back.
And that brings us to another really important point in your reflection. The battle between giving something our full attention versus constantly being distracted.
Oh, yeah, that's a struggle for me, for sure.
For all of us, I think.
You vividly described this experience of achieving a flow state while you were working on your writing.
Oh, yeah.
Like you were completely absorbed and everything else just faded away.
It's a great feeling.
It is. And you even connected this to the Feynman technique.
Oh, yeah. I love that technique.
It's a brilliant learning method and so relevant to our discussion here.
For sure. Can you remind our listeners what that is again?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the Feynman technique is based on the idea that if you can't explain something simply, then you don't truly understand it.
Right.
So you take a concept, you pretend you're teaching it to someone who knows nothing about it, and you see where your explanation gets fuzzy.
Yeah. And then you go back to the source material and try to fill in those gaps.
Exactly. It's a fantastic way to move beyond superficial learning and really internalize knowledge.
But it does require focus, which is something that I struggle with sometimes.
Now tell me about it.
Social media, emails, the endless stream of news, it's a constant battle.
It's a barrage of information.
It is, but reading your reflection reminded me that deep focus is a skill.
It is.
And like any skill, it can be cultivated.
Yeah. Absolutely. We can train our minds to be more focused.
You even talked about using daily task lists and taking mini breaks throughout the day to help manage those distractions.
Yeah, those have been really helpful for me.
How are those working out for you?
Honestly, they've been game changers.
Yeah.
The task list helps me prioritize, stay organized, and the mini breaks prevent me from getting mentally fried.
It's like hitting the reset button on your brain.
It is. It's a way to be kind to ourselves even when we're striving for deep focus.
Right, taking breaks isn't a sign of weakness.
Not at all. It's essential for sustaining our attention over the long haul.
So for those of you listening, how do you know when you're truly focused? What are some of the tricks and strategies that you use to minimize distractions and get in the zone?
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
It's funny how we've gone from thinking about death to talking about the Feynman technique.
Yeah, it's all connected though, isn't it?
It is. It all seems to tie back to this idea of living intentionally and making the most of our time.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another really interesting question you brought up in your reflections.
Right.
The question of whether something can still be meaningful if it's done quickly.
Right. Like, is there a trade-off between speed and quality?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You talked about this tension between wanting to get things done efficiently, but also wanting them to be done well.
Yeah, I called it the speed-quality paradox,
It's a real dilemma, especially in today's world.
right? Everything is so fast-paced.
We have instant communication overnight, shipping on-demand entertainment.
Like, everything is geared towards instant gratification.
Exactly. But does that always lead to meaning?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, sometimes speed is essential.
Like in an emergency?
Exactly. But what about in other areas of life?
Like in our creative endeavors or in our relationship?
Right, rushing through a painting or a conversation with a loved one.
It just doesn't feel right, does it?
Not really. It feels empty.
And you used a great example from your own life that really illustrates this point.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
The time you were unprepared for that presentation in school.
Oh, man, that was awful.
You talked about feeling embarrassed and flustered, even though the presentation itself was pretty simple.
Yeah, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the note cards.
And it all came down to not taking the time to prepare.
Exactly. If I had just put in a little more effort beforehand, it wouldn't have been such a disaster.
It highlights how even simple tasks can become really stressful when we haven't given them the attention they deserve.
Right, and it makes me think that sometimes slowing down and doing things properly can actually save time and energy in the long run.
I think you're right about that.
It's like the old saying, haste makes waste.
And this connects to another fascinating point you made about the value of slowness.
Oh, yeah.
As an introvert, you find solace in activities you can do slowly and thoughtfully.
I do. I really enjoy taking my time to learn a new skill or savor a good book or just be present in nature.
It's like a counterbalance to the constant rush of modern life.
Absolutely. It's a way to reconnect with ourselves and with the world around us.
And this reminds me of the concept of deep work.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that in your reflections.
It emphasizes the importance of focused, uninterrupted time for meaningful work.
And it's not just about work. It's about any activity that requires deep concentration and engagement.
Right, like learning a new language or writing a novel, or even just having a deep conversation with someone.
And you used a really great analogy to illustrate this point, the gym analogy.
Oh,
You compared slow, consistent progress at the gym to the kind of deep, meaningful growth that can't be achieved through sporadic bursts of effort.
it's a powerful metaphor, isn't it?
It is. It makes you think about how you're approaching different areas of your life.
Are we always looking for quick fixes and shortcuts?
Or are we willing to embrace the process even when it's slow and challenging?
That's a great question for everyone listening out there.
Think about an area of your life that could benefit from a slower, more intentional approach.
Maybe it's learning a new language
Mm.
or deepening a relationship or simply being more present in your everyday experiences.
What would it look like to approach those things with less cursory and more depth?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah, it's like saying, hold on, I want to actually be here for this.
Right, and mindfulness isn't about like emptying your mind or anything.
All right, not
Right.
about like achieving some kind of Zen state.
Exactly. It's really just about paying attention.
Just your thoughts.
Yeah, your thoughts, your feelings, even just like your physical sensations.
And just noticing them without judgment
Yeah, just being curious about them.
and open to whatever comes up.
It's really about seeing the world with fresh eyes.
Thinking back to your reflection, It seems like you were already practicing mindfulness without even realizing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you talked about finding joy in simple things like going for a walk in nature or listening to your favorite music.
Oh, yeah.
Those moments where you really slow down and just savor the experience.
Yeah. I guess you're right. Those are definitely mindful moments.
And the more we cultivate that kind of mindfulness, the more accessible those moments become.
It's like building a habit.
Yeah, the more we practice paying attention, the easier it gets.
And the more we start to appreciate all the little things.
Right, and those moments of richness don't have to be grand or
They
anything.
can be really simple.
Yeah, like a conversation with a stranger or feeling the warmth of the sun on your
Or
skin.
even just like the taste of your morning coffee.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from doing to being.
Yeah, from searching for something special to appreciating what's already there.
It's about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
I like that.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Cursory and how it relates to our lives, I want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
What moments are you overlooking?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, where can you slow down, pay attention, and maybe discover something deeper?
Deeper meaning.
Yeah, deeper beauty, a deeper connection to yourself and the world around you.
Don't let life just pass you by.
Yeah, get out of that autopilot mode.
Take the time to savor the simple things, connect with what truly matters.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring how this one word cursory can unlock so much about how we live our lives.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we can learn from just one word.
And remember, the most rewarding discoveries often aren't found in those big pronouncements, but in those quiet reflections and personal connections we make along the way.
So true.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.